this is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman, and today we are talking about our eclipses for 2023 and kind of what energy it's going to be pushing at us and kind of how can we help work through this energy and what is it really wanting us to do. So let's really start. We have a transitional axis following on the line of like the moon in the eclipses, and it's very significant because it activates different axes for us and kind of like what are we going to be working on collectively. And it's not necessarily just one group. It's kind of like worldwide. What are we working on? And some people are like really at the beginning of like, they're like, we're on this, we're on everything, we're moving forward. And then there's some way at the back going like, what are we doing? I have no idea. So it's kind of like everybody's working on this, even if you're not 100% aware of it, or people that in our lives that are kind of like, what are you talking about? So let's talk about this. We are really transitioning from our nodal axis of Taurus, Scorpio into our Aries, Libra line. And so last year, our lunar and solar eclipses occurred on the nodal axis of Taurus and Scorpio. And this really meant that for us, that we were kind of really working on like the value of grounding, simplicity, stability, all of those things. And a lot of times what people were not understanding is how important that is. Like I said, even if you're at the back of the group going like, what? Everybody works on this at the same time, or it's being offered to everybody at the same time. So could be working on that. Some people are really at the front of the group and really working on these kind of shadow energies. So shadow meaning underneath our skin are things that we're have worked on in past lives as well. So this can be like, interesting. In addition, we have been learning how to release like excessive passion. And this is kind of like that, not just like, oh, I love you so much. I mean like the excessive passage, like we have to be working 24/7, 365 on our job, our career, or, and this can even get into that addictive energy as well. And so we're kind of like pushing that to the side and kind of releasing those destructive patterns that we've had for a while, and finally seeing that like this habitual drama, the trauma cycle isn't good for anybody. And a lot of people are just staying stuck in that. And they still have some time to get out of it, but it's one of those, and a lot of times like people will end up kind of like really getting addicted to that trauma cycle, and they'll keep pulling people into their lives that are going to bring more trauma eventually. So they go through the honeymoon phase and then they kind of get into the trauma of it. Now they're trying to control me, they're trying to tell me what to do, all of that kind of stuff. And they like that because it's familiar. It may be crazy, but it's familiar. And so it's kind of like, I'd rather stay in something familiar than not be in something I'm familiar with. And so that's why they kind of stay in those tendencies. In 2023, we are kind of transitioning into more of the Aries Libra line. And this is really going to be kind of bringing us forward to kind of like the awareness of like issues of us versus others. Kind of like there's always that push and pull, like I want to get mine, but there's also a push pull to kind of like we need to give to others. So there's kind of a balance in all of that. The North Node in Aries continues to kind of like pulling us forward into kind of more the simplistic side, the easy side, getting rid of the drama and the trauma, and kind of like let's make our lives as simple as possible. And I've seen this with a lot of people literally saying, I'm tired of work, I'm ready to kind of give all of that drama and trauma away from work. And so I think that's kind of a really interesting, like, wow, really people are really ready to kind of let that go. I've seen a lot more people letting that drama and trauma go in their family lives, like walking away, like telling me like, Ruth, I can't do this anymore. I just can't deal with the recycle of the narcissistic circles, or kind of like the family, the way it works together, it really doesn't work, and I'm the scapegoat or whatever it is, and they're like, I'm out of here. So a lot of people kind of looking for that simplistic, like I'm ready to make my life simple and more calm, I would say. Aries kind of urges us towards directness and independence. And that's where we're kind of seen as like, I'd rather be on my own than in this trauma drama cycle with everybody else. And it's one of those like kind of really being patient with ourselves. This can be kind of a great way of like pure action. Like, I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing this for me and my family. And I've seen this with many clients, I would say, over the last few months as we've kind of worked closer to this energy. Aries also kind of pushes us towards directness, like saying, I'm not doing this anymore. Where before we might go, I don't feel well. I don't want to go to the family event, or I don't want to go to Easter, I don't want to go to dinner, or I don't want to go to Christmas or whatever else. And kind of like pushing off onto an excuse. And now people are more directive going, I don't want to do this anymore. I definitely don't want to do this anymore. And pushing that energy, definitely pushing that energy into some healthier ways of going like, I'm calling this quits. I even have a friend who literally, her and her family and her 2 boys literally drive to everybody's house for like Christmas and Easter and New Year's and and it's like, it's not terribly far away, but it's one of those, they called it quits. The end of 2023, we're like, we're not doing this anymore. You know, for years they have gone to grandma's house and grandma and grandpa. So they've kind of done grandma's house and then grandpa's house and then mom's house, and mom and dad are divorced, so we're going to 2 different places. And they're like, we're not doing this anymore. Like, we are calling this quits. And I'm like, I understand. This is kind of can be into the crazy stage of that. Kind of the cardinal kind of energy with this Aries energy is kind of getting us to the point where it's like, I don't care what other people think. I don't care that you don't like that I'm not doing this. Where before we might be, well, we want to keep up appearances. We want to do that. And now it's like people are like, I don't care. So that is like a much healthier aspect for a lot of people. And this is kind of like, yes, finally people are making these changes. While the South Node is in Libra, it reveals us to kind of like, reveals to us like some unhealthy ways that we have been relating or to each other. For example, kind of like eclipses are urging us to kind of release the behaviors of like people pleasing, the codependency, the superficial, like I have to pretend like I'm the perfect daughter, or he has to pretend like he's the perfect son or whatever else, and kind of going like, I'm over all of this. And I've been seeing this coming up, not only in my family, but many other people's family as well. So it's like, yes, finally getting that independence. I've also been a lot of people kind of going into getting rid of the passive aggressive stuff and actually calling people on the passive aggressive stuff, which is like awesome, because it's one of those like people may only hear that passive side, like, oh, she's so calm, cool, and collected, but they're not hearing that aggressive side come out. And so now people are going like, wow, I didn't realize that. And the scapegoats in the family are kind of like, we're finished with all of this. We're done with this, and we're not doing it anymore. So I've seen this happen to many families, which sounds like a bad thing, but it really is an amazing good thing. I know it's like, it's an amazing good thing because someone who's staying in a family situation, even if it's not healthy for them, is not good. And it's one of those, and it's not good for that person, and it's not good for their children or the other people around it to watch or kind of like endure all of this. It's not good. And realizing like, oh, no matter what, even if this is not a good situation for me, I need to just suck it up and deal with it. Not good at all. Totally not good. I think one of the things is kind of showing kind of people when someone is out of balance. And I think that's one of the reasons why, like, I've been really on like calling narcissistic people out on their stuff. A lot of people are disassociating with all of that kind of energy, and kind of like when things are out of balance, it's like, I don't want to deal with this. And so I've seen this, like I said, with a lot of clients, and I'm like, yes. Let's change this so we can make it better. Because if we're constantly kind of like in that energy of like, well, we're just going to go along to get along. And I've heard this for years, even in my own family, like go along and get along, or pretend like we're all a happy family or whatever else. It doesn't help. All it does is encourage that person that's out of balance to stay out of balance. When you move away, it's kind of like they get an opportunity They may not take that opportunity, but they get the opportunity to kind of like, what am I doing wrong? What am I not doing correct in this? And what can I do or change to be different? Okay, so now let's really talk about like the eclipse energy and the shadow. And a lot of people think shadow, bad, dark, all that kind of stuff, and it really isn't. What it is talking about is kind of like when the moon's shadow goes over the sun. It's one of those, it blocks out the sun, but it actually lights up so many other things. So if you kind of looked around during an eclipse, kind of like what is being lit up now, because you're kind of like in that energy or that light that we're normally not in, colors look different, have a different feel to it, and things that would normally kind of like being obscured are completely like, wow, this is amazing. This is like things that I normally wouldn't see are now being shown to me. And so quite literally during a solar eclipse, it can really cast like some great shadows and bring up things that we normally have hidden and kind of like, oh, this is something that I need to work on. Kind of the psychology of the shadow is like I said, a lot of people think of it as negative, but it's not. It's really contacting our natal chart and kind of like, where have we had this perfect opportunity to look at the shadows, kind of like this things that we normally want to hide, the things that we want to put aside, now it's coming up, and that shadow can make us really bring our whole selves together. So a lot of people do a lot of shadow work to kind of clear out and cleanse and kind of like putting a different light in what we're doing and kind of like a different aspect to us. That's kind of the basics of the shadow work with solar eclipses. During eclipses, we can also identify like our shadows so much differently and kind of like I said, looking at ourselves. So this is kind of like, wow, this is really cool. Now, kind of the dates that are coming up, we have 4 eclipses in 2023, and we always have a balance of eclipses. We always have like a solar eclipse and then a lunar eclipse, and then a solar eclipse and a lunar. Like they always have a balance, and they're about 2 weeks apart. So let's really talk about the dates for the eclipses of 2023. So on April 19th or 20th, because it's really happening like right around midnight. That's the way they happen sometimes, is kind of like, so they're on one day or the other. So it could be April 19th or 20th, depending on where you are in the world. We have a total solar eclipse in the sign of Aries, and our sun is conjunct the north node of the moon at that time. And then on May 5th of 2023, we have a preumbral solar eclipse in the sign of Scorpio, and the moon is conjunct the south node. And then on October 14th of 2023, we have a annular solar eclipse in Libra, and the sun is conjunct the south node. And then on October 28th, we have a partial lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus, and the sun is conjunct the south node. So there is tons of information about this. I will be posting more videos about this because it's a lot of information, and it's not just like, yay, go out and go look at the eclipse or whatever else, or kind of get ready for this. There is tons more information, and I want you to be totally aware of not only the information about it, but the energy behind it, because that's the really fun part for us. I thank you so much for joining me today, and I know that we'll be talking again soon.